Yeah, my name is Ken Nesland. I'm a landscape consultant and was a contractor for 48 years before retiring and becoming a consultant. I bought my property back around 1980 and started developing it in 1987. Always wanted to do a railroad, but never seemed to have the time. So in the early 2000s, I started landscaping my yard. And about 6 months ago, I started in on my railroad. I spend a lot of time in the Snohomish Valley, so I base my railroad on the Snohomish Valley. I have 3 towns, the town of Snohomish, the town of Grotto, and the town of Index. I have the Snohomish River and Rainbow Falls as also part of this way. The outcropping rock that I have done was done many years ago, so I incorporated my railroad into it. The blocks that you see behind me were installed after the rocks. That was the first part of my construction, is to build that up to the grade that matched my waterfall. After that I filled it, then I poured a concrete base for my tracks, so I didn't have the maintenance of re-leveling every year. Then we started laying track and bringing in topsoil to build the mountains and rock for the outcropping. Once we had all that done, then we started in on the air switches, which took us a couple weeks to finish, and then the planting was done. It's kind of been like a 6-month project to get this part done, not working full time, but quite a bit of the time. And I had some help from some of my members in my garden club, garden train club, Puget Sound Garden Railroad Society. So that was a lifesaver there, as the scenery is kind of my specialty, and some of the technical stuff of the railroad I had help from the members. The logging operation was set up to mimic the Bodell Railroad up in Snohomish. I've constructed a tunnel with the mountains and back with a fire tower. I have a logging area which is not as yet complete, but I also have a siding that comes off to load logs. And then on the other side of my logging layout, I have a gold mine with a siding for bringing the ore cars out of there. Also, the rock that I have used is mountain granite from the Cascades, which more realistically portrays the kind of rock that was on the Bodell Railroad. I've installed a Y on my railroad, which can turn around a pretty good size logging train. The smaller engines seem to work quite well on it. If you notice in the background, I have a big rock that looks like a bird bath. That would portray a mountain lake. Years ago in my business, I used to sell granite tables, granite columns, basalt columns, and that rock bird bath came from those days. All 3 of my lines are connected in one way or another. Here we're showing the logging railroad, how is connected with a switch to either go up and to the future bridge that will go across to the building that I will build in the future. Once up there, throw the switch and it comes into the inner loop. The inner loop is then connected to the outer loop, so you can do way bills for different industries. What you're looking at now is the town of Snohomish, with the days that they had gravel streets. The gravel streets connect over to the concrete area, which portrays Highway 2 to go to Grotto. I've tried to portray some of the buildings that are in Snohomish on a very loose terms, but Snohomish is the main town on my layout. The planter that you see in the middle of the street is made of solid basalt carved out and will be a planter for annuals in the future. In the rear of Snohomish, you see my gold mine set up. There wasn't gold mines like that around Snohomish. There was old gold mines around Money Creek, but I decided to portray that type of gold mine as it stands out more on my layout. On the other side of my layout is my future mill that I have just began putting together. There will be a log pond with more buildings and a log unloading area on this siding here. When the town of Snohomish and Grotto is completely finished, there will be buildings on there that will be a tribute to members of my family. As you notice, Bobby's garage there in the middle of town is in honor of my older brother. The depot I have here is a close replica of the one that is in Snohomish now. The hotel you see kind of mimics the old Snohomish hotel. The warehouse that you see over on the left-hand side mimics the Maloney warehouse. Maloney had a store also in town, which is also portrayed on Main Street. He also owned a shingle mill, which I don't have in my layout yet. Again, some of these buildings will be re-signed and have names on them in tributes to members of my family. This is the Empire Builder coming in on the middle loop to stop in front of the Snohomish station. Yeah, this is my friend Mark Howe, who was responsible for helping me do a lot of the track work and air switches. I'd have never got it done without him. He's also a member of our Puget Sound Garden Railroad Society. Yeah, this bridge was obviously a lift bridge, so I can get into my pathways. The Mark has just opened it up. Again, my friend Doug designed and built these bridges. Here we see the town of Index with the Empire Builder passing through. It's crossing the bridge over Rainbow Falls, heading for Grotto. The hotel you see here is supposed to portray the Bush House in Index. And this is designed to be a mountain town, so that's why you see the log cabins. This waterfall was built many years ago. There was 300 yards of dirt installed and the whole bank was built out. The pond is 4 feet deep, has many ton of rock, some rocks weighing as much as 3 ton. The pond has a rubber liner covered with concrete, which is gunite. So when we install these big rocks that we don't puncture the liner. Then there was cobble put over the top of those. Yeah, as you see, this is one of my sunnier areas. What's blooming in the background there is a Miss Kim lilac, as well as some potentilla. I have a weeping Norway spruce that is quite old, and some Daphne odora, yarrow, catmint, spirea, silvergrass, and some zebra grass, as well as some other various plants. The bridges that are black are made of steel and are powder coated, made by a friend of mine who is a retired welder. The aluminum bridge was constructed by an individual that I bought some products from, and he handmade that bridge. Again, here is the Empire Builder coming across Rainbow Falls, heading for the town of Grotto, past a small farm on its way over the Snohomish River. This is the little town of Grotto, more like it was in the old days. Today it is a small little community. Many years ago there was a cement plant there and a tramway that went up into the mountains, and then later the limestone was transported from different areas, Wenatchee and some other areas, into town, and the tramway was done away with. Also here you'll see some sidings. There is a smelter plant there that the ore from the gold mine will come to, and a refueling area, as well as some different storage areas. This is where there's a Y that the main line can go on to the middle track. I installed a flagstone path with Corsican mint for maintenance of the layout, but also comes in handy for derailments or other things we need to work on in the layout. Also here on my logging railroad, there's going to be some future bunkhouses, and on the hillside above the log loading area, I'll be installing stumps and some other things to portray the logging industry. The area that I have for my garden railroad is in shade and part shade, with a few areas in full sun. So the plant material that I picked has to fit the area. I have installed a stelby, chocolate chip ajuga, and dwarf rhododendrons, as well as Corsican mint. In the middle of my layout, I have Alberta spruce, heuchera, brass buttons, and a geranium, as well as some sweet woodruff in the forefront. Behind the Alberta spruce, I have some Scotch moss, azaleas, and some brunera, as well as mondo grass and foam flower. Also in my layout, I have some various ferns, Oregon grape, deciduous Xberry azaleas, and I have sedum angelina, as well as some other dwarf rhododendrons. I have wintergreen, which is a dwarf form of salal. I have a Daphne sonorum, and I also have added some kinnikinick in the sunnier areas. Layout will bloom at different times of the year to kind of give it a more of a complete season. As you see, I'm sitting watching my trains. This area was set up so I can run the whole layout with my air switch control panel over here. I have my granite table here to set my refreshments on and sit and just relax and watch all my trains go around. I have a patio here also for a table for having a picnic for guests and family. So it's set up so I can enjoy it whether I'm by myself or with a bunch of my friends. This is the entrance to my Garden Railroad area. You notice on the signpost is the name Myron Nesland. Well, that was one of my brothers. That was the real train expert in the family. Also, you see another sign is kind of honoring all the different dogs that I've had. One of my last dogs has just passed away. Planted underneath of it is some Lenten rose that blooms early in the year. Off to the side of my patio, I have planted Xberry azaleas, Vinca minor, some Skimmia japonica, and some hosta. You notice my paths are made out of crushed gravel and using basalt rock as a border to make the layout look rustic. I have a lot of moss in different areas of my yard as well as some native plants, so I have worked around those to add to the native part of it. Yeah, we're now entering the entrance to my property. This log entrance I built many years ago and planted wisteria on it, which is just finishing up its bloom right now. As you will see as we go through my garden, I have tons and tons and tons of rock, which I guess being Norwegian, love wood and rocks. The method I have used for planting my yard is to use as many plants and ground covers as possible to eliminate mulching and also to cut down on my weeding. I have hundreds of different kinds of plants, so there is something blooming in my yard 12 months of the year. I have both evergreen and deciduous, so as you can see, the new growth coming out on the evergreens gives you one added part of beauty, as well as in the fall when all my leaves start changing color. The area I live in at one time many years ago was a logging area. This is an old growth cedar stump, and growing out of it is a western hemlock. You can still see the springboard marks, and on one side you can even see where there was a forest fire at one time. In the background is a vine maple that has grown out of the ground on it, just on its own. As you see, I've created dry stream beds which not only portray streams but also divide areas up to show different areas of plantings. This is an example of mass planting and also an example of different things happening at different times of the year. Just as an example, I have autoleucon laurel in the back, which is just finishing blooming. I have some flowering currant that has just finished. My hydrangeas will be blooming later this summer, as my mountain laurel is also going to be blooming here very shortly. The ajuga is just finishing up also, and then the color is the Hecalone grass and the Japanese maple. As we walk around the yard, you'll notice all the different areas are connected with pathways, both for interest and for maintenance. And again, most of the pathways are crushed rock. There are some areas that you will see where we have flagstone installed. The flagstone path that you see there is made from flagstone from Montana, obviously called Montana flagstone. And the blue flower is the catmint plant. Yeah, the plant that you see here is Siberian iris. Beautiful plant, also fits right in with the pond setting. These steps are made out of solid granite and over the years have weathered with the moss growing on them to give them a natural look. In the background there is a dogwood tree that is in full bloom now with sweet woodruff and native geraniums blooming. This is another area. It just shows how gravel paths connect my different areas. This area has been newly planted, so it's not as fully grown as some of the other areas. This is an outlook from my deck looking out towards the mountains. The mountains you are looking at here is Mount Pilchuck, still with snow on it. Sometimes that is completely covered from snow from here, and with some binoculars you can see the old fire tower up there. Scanning across just barely through the mountains to the far right, you can see the area up by Mount Index, up by Bering. Below is my field where my sheep are the lawnmowers. My property goes to the middle of the lake that you see there. It's Meadow Lake, and growing naturally in my field is some foxglove. The white flower you see there is Viburnum tomentosum, and I also have a Persian lilac that is in bloom right now. In the background of that is a mountain hemlock with alpine fir growing out of it that was dug up in the mountains around Winthrop. This tree that you are looking at here is approximately 30 feet tall, multi-stemmed. It is Alaska weeping cedar. For many years I was the landscaper for the Seattle Home Show doing their feature areas. This tree was in the home show back in the 80s when it was still in the Kingdom. It was 16 feet tall when I used it in my display. This is an area where I can enjoy my landscaping as well as my railroad. This is a fire table, so I eat a lot of meals out here in the summer when the weather is nice. It's even nice to sit out here in the winter with the fire going and listen to the birds and just the pitter-patter of the rain. This is a poem I wrote many years ago for a display in the home show when it was still in the Kingdom. An artist cut this out of solid metal and I have over the years just let it weather so that it's starting to look fairly rustic now. Yeah, this mural was painted by a friend of mine, David Hose, who is a muralist and paints many murals around Sultan, Monroe, Snohomish. She's been written up several times. This scene is up by Bridal Veil Falls, Mount Index, and the train you see there is the Empire Builder I rode on as a kid. The tunnel you see is the Money Creek Tunnel, but we turned it into a train tunnel, and the river is the Snohomish River. You will also see, if you look closely, there's some mountain goats up on top of the Money Creek Tunnel, and that's me fishing in the stream with my old dogs up on the bank. My newest dogs, Emma and Mindy, are down at the bottom of the stairs, and also you'll see some mountain goats and some deer and an eagle also flying in there. The tree that you're looking at in the background is a mountain hemlock. This was in my old display yard when I had my nursery in Bothell. The tree was 10 feet tall when I dug it out of a yard in Magnolia back in the early 1970s. The tree to the right is a Japanese maple. That tree was 4 feet tall when I planted it in my old display yard and moved it up to my present yard. The steps that you see going to my front door are also solid granite mixed in with concrete. This is one of the shadier areas of my yard. These ferns are autumn ferns, which turn an orange color when they first come out. That's sweet woodruff as a ground cover that is covering the area, and with some dwarf rhodie and sweet spire in the background. This area here is planted with red thyme. It is meant to lay in and smell the thyme and then look out at the mountains. The little flower you see blooming as a ground cover is blue star creeper. The grass you see is artificial. So as you see in my yard, I have no grass to mow. All the grass in my fields is taken care of by the sheep. So basically my main chore is pruning and weeding. This is another patio setting I have for relaxation. This overlooks my field and my forest area. I have a little fire pit here that I burn sometimes. This is another pathway leading around the bottom of my yard, which ends back up at my garden railroad.